The Forbidden Species. The Galactic War Academy hung suspended in the void between three dying stars, its crystalline architecture capturing and refracting their crimson light. Inside Lecture Hall Theta 9, 200 of the most promising military cadets from across the Confederated systems sat in attentive silence. Today was different. Today, Professor Zixlar would deliver the forbidden lecture. "Deactivate all recording devices," Professor Zixlar commanded, his four arms working in perfect coordination as he interfaced with the hall's security systems. The ancient Quarian's exoskeleton clicked softly as he moved to the center of the stage. "What I am about to share is classified under Galactic Accord 7729X. Your presence here means you've achieved sufficient clearance. Nevertheless, dissemination of this information carries penalties up to and including neural wiping." Krell, an Arcturian with polished blue scales and ambitious eyes, leaned forward. As the top-ranked tactical student, he'd waited 3 cycles for this moment. Beside him, Vela's luminescent skin pulsed with excitement. The luminary researcher had devoted her studies to understanding the psychological warfare techniques of extinct civilizations. Today, Professor Zixlar continued, we discuss the only species explicitly banned from participating in galactic warfare. His lower arms activated the holographic display, projecting an image that caused murmurs to ripple through the lecture hall. The hologram showed a bipedal creature with minimal external protection, no natural weapons, and an unremarkable physiology. "Humans," the professor said simply. In the back row, Dronax, a massive Vulcan warrior with volcanic skin and a legendary training record, snorted dismissively. "That's what everyone fears. They look like they'd shatter upon impact." Professor Zixlar's compound eyes shifted toward the interruption. "That misconception, Cadet Dronax, is precisely why this lecture exists." The professor manipulated the controls, and the hologram expanded to show Earth, a seemingly unremarkable planet orbiting an average yellow star. Humanity evolved on a Class 13 death world, one of only 3 sentient species to do so. Their planet features extreme temperature variations, catastrophic weather events, massive tectonic instability, and an ecosystem where virtually everything is either toxic, predatory, or both. The hologram displayed various Earth predators: lions pouncing, sharks swimming, eagles diving. What's remarkable isn't that humans survived, but how they survived. Unlike other Death World species that evolved biological weapons or defenses, humans developed something far more dangerous: adaptability paired with pattern recognition. Krell raised a scaled hand. "Professor, why would adaptability warrant a galactic ban? The Morphidians can literally reconfigure their molecular structure, yet they participate in regulated conflicts." "An excellent question." The professor's exoskeleton clicked as he approached the front row. "The difference is that human adaptability isn't primarily physical, it's cognitive. Their neural pathways form connections at a rate that our brightest xenobiologists still cannot fully explain." The hologram shifted to display primitive human warfare: spears, bows, swords, and shields. For most of their history, humans fought each other. They developed combat techniques, strategies, and weapon systems at an alarming rate. In just 10,000 years, a mere instant in evolutionary terms, they progressed from sharpened sticks to global devastation weapons. Vela's skin pulsed yellow with curiosity. "But Professor, many species underwent similar technological progressions." "Indeed, but none combined it with humanity's unique psychological profile." Professor Zixlar's voice lowered. "Humans possess a psychological characteristic unknown in any other sentient species. They become more innovative, more determined, and more dangerous when facing impossible odds." The hologram displayed historical images: primitive human warriors standing against overwhelming forces, vastly outnumbered defenders repelling attackers. Other species retreat from hopeless scenarios, a logical evolutionary adaptation. Humans do not compute warfare logically. When defeat seems certain, they reject that certainty. They innovate, They sacrifice. They break rules. Most dist. Other species retreat from hopeless scenarios, a logical evolutionary adaptation. Humans do not compute warfare logically. When defeat seems certain, they reject that certainty. They innovate. They sacrifice. They break rules. Most disturbingly, they view rules as merely suggestions. Dronax leaned forward, his dismissive attitude fading. You're saying they don't follow combat protocols? Every civilized species adheres to war regulations. Precisely. The professor nodded. The Galactic Confederacy has spent millennia perfecting the art of civilized warfare. Regulated conflicts with minimal civilian casualties and infrastructure damage. Resource wars conducted through limited engagements with predetermined acceptable losses. The hologram shifted to display the gleaming warships of various Confederacy species, their elegant designs showcasing millennia of refined military doctrine. Then, 73 cycles ago, humanity achieved faster than light travel. The professor's tone grew grave. The Confederacy, following standard protocols, invited Earth to join as a protectorate state. Part of this process included permitting them limited participation in an ongoing territorial dispute in the Proxima Centauri system. The hall fell silent. Even the most disinterested cadets now sat transfixed. What you are about to see is restricted to War College seniors and above. Professor Zixlar's exoskeleton seemed to tighten around him. This is why humans are banned from galactic warfare. The hologram changed to display a battle recording. Confederate warships engaged in the ceremonial opening salvos of a territorial dispute, precise, measured, adhering to the choreography of civilized combat. Then, a small fleet of crude human vessels appeared. Krell frowned. Their ships look primitive. They were, the professor confirmed. Human technology lagged centuries behind Confederate standards. By all tactical assessments, they posed no threat to either faction. On the hologram, the battle progressed according to protocols, until the human ships broke formation. What followed defied all conventional military logic. The primitive vessels accelerated directly toward enemy capital ships, a suicidal tactic no rational species would employ. The humans had modified their vessels, Professor Zixlar explained. Stripped of safety systems, converted for single-purpose kinetic impacts. Their captains remained on board until the final seconds. The recording showed the devastating results. Confederate vessels shattered by impacts they never anticipated because such tactics violated every principle of civilized warfare. But that was merely the beginning. The professor continued. The humans deployed what they called special forces to enemy installations. Small teams who employed psychological warfare beyond anything in our military doctrine. The hologram displayed surveillance footage of human soldiers moving through enemy bases. They didn't engage in honorable combat. They sabotaged life support systems. They poisoned food supplies. They set traps that violated every provision of the Combat Ethics Treaty. Within 14 standard days, the humans had forced a complete surrender of forces that outnumbered them 20-1, using technology inferior by centuries. Professor Zixlar's voice was solemn. The Confederacy immediately implemented Quarantine Protocol Omega. Earth was surrounded by interdiction fields. All human military personnel were escorted back to their home system. And they accepted this. Vila asked, her luminescence now pulsing with concern. They did not, the professor replied, which is why I must now share the most classified portion of this briefing. The hologram shifted again, displaying an enormous space station orbiting Jupiter. After the quarantine, humans accelerated their military research exponentially. Confederate intelligence estimates they compressed 2 centuries of development into 2 decades. They expanded throughout their home system, building installations like this one. Professor Zixlar manipulated the controls, and the hologram zoomed in on the station. Its purpose became clear, a massive cannon of some kind, aimed toward the interdiction barrier. 72 hours before they planned to test this weapon against our containment systems, the Confederacy Supreme Command made an unprecedented decision. For the first and only time in our history, we sent diplomats, not warriors, to negotiate. The hologram displayed the diplomatic meeting. Towering Confederate representatives facing unimpressive-looking humans across a simple table. The humans presented a choice: remove the interdiction field, or they would remove it themselves. And then, as they put it, continue the conversation with whoever was left. Dronax stood up, his volcanic skin glowing with indignation. You're saying the Confederacy capitulated to threats from primitives. I'm saying the Confederacy's supreme military command, with thousands of years of collective combat experience, determined that warfare with humans was unwinnable. Professor Zixlar's compound eyes surveyed the stunned cadets. Not merely costly or difficult, unwinnable. The professor's exoskeleton clicked as he moved toward the center of the stage again. The resulting treaty included a unique provision. Humans would not participate in galactic warfare, and in exchange, no Confederate forces would enter human territory without explicit permission. But why? Krell asked, his tactical mind struggling to comprehend. Why would an inferior force be considered unbeatable? Professor Zixlar dimmed the hologram. Because, Cadet Krell, humans don't fight to win according to established parameters. They fight to survive, by any means necessary. And that is why this lecture exists, so that future military leaders understand why the prohibition against human military involvement must never be broken. The professor straightened to his full height. This concludes today's classified briefing. Your regular theoretical combat ethics class will resume tomorrow. As the stunned cadets filed out, Krell, Vela, and Dronax lingered behind. Do you believe it? Dronax rumbled, his earlier dismissiveness replaced with uneasy respect. Krell's scales shifted in the Arcturian expression of deep thought. It explains the diplomatic protocols. Have you noticed how Confederate representatives always agree to human terms in trade negotiations? Vela's luminescence pulsed with academic excitement. I need to research this further. My thesis on psychological warfare techniques is incomplete without understanding humans. Professor Zixlar approached the three students. Your curiosity is noted, but I must caution restraint. The ban exists for good reason. With respect, Professor, Krell replied, if we're to be effective military leaders, shouldn't we understand all potential threats? The professor's compound eyes studied them carefully. Perhaps you're right, Cadet Krell, which is why you three have been selected for an additional educational opportunity. What opportunity? Dronax asked. Tomorrow at dawn, Professor Zixlar said quietly, you will accompany me to witness something few non-humans have seen, a live-fire exercise conducted by the Earth Defense Force. The Confederacy sends observers once per cycle. This cycle, you three will join the observation team. As the professor walked away, the three cadets exchanged looks of mingled excitement and apprehension. The forbidden species was about to become much less theoretical. The battle that changed everything. The diplomatic shuttle cut silently through space, its sleek design a testament to the Confederacy's refined aesthetic. Krell, Vela, and Dronax sat in uncomfortable silence as Professor Zixlar prepared them for what lay ahead. We're approaching the observation point, the professor announced, his exoskeleton clicking as he manipulated the navigation controls. The human military exercise will commence in approximately 1 standard hour. Through the viewport, the cadets could see a massive fleet assembled near Mars. The human vessels lacked the elegant symmetry of Confederate warships. They were bulky, angular, and bristling with weapons systems that violated numerous provisions of the Galactic Weapons Limitation Treaty. Those can't possibly be legal, Dronax muttered, his volcanic skin pulsing with heat. They are not required to comply with our treaties within their territory. Professor Zixlar reminded him. This is why observation missions are so valuable. They provide insight into human military development without direct engagement. The shuttle docked with a small Confederate observation platform positioned at the agreed-upon coordinates. As they disembarked, a holographic interface activated, displaying a human in military attire. Welcome, Confederate observers, the human said. I'm Admiral Chen, overseeing today's exercises. You're cleared to monitor all non-classified aspects of the demonstration. Please remain on your observation platform. The exercise includes live fire and experimental technologies. Krell studied the human with fascinated intensity. They appear so fragile. I still don't understand how they could pose such a threat. Professor Zixlar's compound eyes shifted toward the cadet. You're about to see a partial answer to that question. The observation platform's sensors activated, providing enhanced views of the human fleet as it moved into formation. What followed defied conventional military logic. Instead of the carefully choreographed maneuvers that defined Confederate war games, the human vessels engaged in seemingly chaotic patterns, individual captains making tactical decisions that appeared uncoordinated. Where is their central command structure? Vela asked, her luminescence fluctuating with confusion. They operate on what they call mission command, Professor Zixlar explained. Each unit leader understands the overall objective, but has freedom to determine how to achieve it. This unpredictability is part of what makes human warfare so challenging to counter. As they watched, the exercise intensified. The human ships divided into opposing forces, red and blue, and began a simulated conflict. What started as conventional tactics quickly evolved into something else entirely. They're deliberately damaging their own vessels. Dronax observed with shock as a red team destroyer absorbed severe damage to shield a more valuable target. Tactical sacrifice, the professor noted. Humans will accept losses deemed unacceptable to Confederate military doctrine if they serve the larger objective. The observation platform sensors suddenly detected massive energy signatures as the blue team deployed weapons unlike anything in the Confederate arsenal, devices that distorted gravity itself, creating localized singularities that tore apart red team vessels. That technology should be theoretically impossible with their level of scientific development. Vela whispered, her academic curiosity overriding her growing unease. Humans excel at weaponizing theoretical concepts, Professor Zixlar replied. They often implement technologies before fully understanding the underlying principles. They call it practical application before complete comprehension. The exercise continued to escalate. When the red team appeared defeated by conventional metrics, they initiated what humans termed a desperate countermeasure, deploying drones carrying experimental bioweapons designed to incapacitate enemy crews without destroying the vessels. This violates at least 7 Confederate treaties, Krell noted, his scales darkening with concern. Which is why such weapons are permitted only in their own territory, and only against other humans who've consented to their use in training, the professor explained. The Confederacy's observations suggest humans maintain arsenals of weapons they never deploy in exercises, weapons so ethically problematic they don't even test them publicly. As the exercise concluded, the observation platform received a communication request. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared again. Observers, we're entering Phase 2 of today's demonstration. This will include historical reenactment of the Proxima Centauri incident using modern technology. Be advised that some aspects may be disturbing to non-human observers. Professor Zixlar's exoskeleton tightened noticeably. This is unexpected. Historical reenactments are not typically included in observation permissions. Is that a problem? Dronax asked. It means the humans are sending a message, the professor replied. They'd want us to see something specific. The viewport now displayed a simulation of the battle that had led to humanity's exclusion from galactic warfare. The human vessels were depicted as they had been then, primitive, under-equipped, facing vastly superior Confederate forces. What follows is not fiction, Admiral Chen's voice explained. All tactics displayed were employed in the actual conflict, verified by Confederate records. The simulation showed the human ships employing tactics that violated every principle of civilized combat, ramming attacks, radiation weapons, even detonating their own reactors to create electromagnetic pulses that disabled enemy systems. But this doesn't show the worst of it, Professor Zixlar noted grimly. The ground operations were what truly disturbed Confederate command. As if responding to his comment, the simulation shifted to display ground combat. Human Special Forces operators infiltrated enemy bases using methods that defied conventional defense systems. They moved differently than Confederate soldiers, not in organized formations, but as fluid, adaptive units that exploited every weakness. Most disturbing was their psychological warfare. The humans didn't attempt to defeat enemy forces through honorable combat. They deliberately created terror. They struck at night, used sound and light to disorient defenders, and employed chemical agents that induced panic. They exploited psychological vulnerabilities most species don't even recognize in themselves. Vila observed, her luminescence now pulsing erratically. Precisely, the professor confirmed. Confederate military doctrine evolved to minimize casualties and damage while achieving strategic objectives. Human warfare evolved to break the enemy's will to fight by any means necessary. The simulation reached its conclusion. The surrender of Confederate forces that had enjoyed overwhelming superiority in numbers and technology. Admiral Chen's hologram reappeared. The demonstration concludes in 15 minutes with a live fire test of our newest defense system. We thought you might find it relevant to your academic interests. As the hologram disappeared, Dronax turned to Professor Zixlar. They know who we are, what we study. Of course they do, the professor replied. Humans monitor Confederate communications with disturbing effectiveness. They likely know exactly why I brought 3 promising students to this observation. The final phase of the demonstration began with little warning. A target drone, approximately the size of a standard Confederate cruiser, moved into position near the outer edge of the exercise area. Without warning, a massive energy signature erupted from Mars. The beam that followed defied analysis by the observation platform sensors, some form of focused particle weapon, but operating on principles unknown to Confederate science. The target drone didn't merely explode, it disintegrated at the molecular level. That weapon, Krell's voice faltered. It could destroy any vessel in the Confederate fleet. Yes, Professor Zixlar agreed, and noticed they conducted this test while we were observing. That, cadets, is human psychological warfare. They're ensuring the Confederacy knows what they're capable of without explicitly threatening us. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared one final time. Thank you for observing today's exercises. As a courtesy, we're transmitting technical specifications of the defense system you just witnessed to your platform. These specifications are being simultaneously provided to all Confederate military command structures. Safe journey back to your academy. As the hologram faded, the 3 cadets turned to their professor in stunned silence. They just gave us their weapon specifications, Vela finally asked. Yes, Professor Zixlar replied, his compound eyes focusing on the data package being received. Because they want us to know it wouldn't matter if we had them. Human military innovation occurs at a pace that renders intelligence outdated almost immediately. By the time the Confederacy could develop countermeasures to this weapon, humans will have developed something new. As the shuttle departed the observation platform, Krell stared back at the human fleet. I still don't understand, Professor. If humans possess such military advantages, why do they accept exclusion from galactic conflicts? They could demand participation, or worse, conquest. Professor Zixlar's exoskeleton clicked softly as he considered his response. That, Cadet Krell, is the final and most important lesson. It's not about what humans could do to us. It's about what engaging in warfare does to humans themselves. And that is what you'll learn when we reach our next destination. Next destination? Dronax questioned. The observation is complete. No, the professor corrected. You've observed human military capability. Now you must understand why the Confederacy fears it. Our next stop is Earth itself, specifically, a place humans call Arlington. The 3 cadets exchanged glances as the shuttle adjusted course toward the blue planet. The most forbidden species in the galaxy had just become even more enigmatic. The truth unleashed. Earth's blue-green surface filled the viewport as the Confederate shuttle received clearance to enter human space. Unlike most worlds, Earth maintained minimal orbital infrastructure, a deliberate choice, Professor Zixlar explained, to prevent the appearance of militarization. "We're being escorted," Krell observed as two human interceptors took position alongside their shuttle. "Standard procedure," the professor replied. Though notice they're not using their most advanced vessels. Another psychological tactic, showing capability without revealing true potential. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, the human escorts peeling away as they approached a landing pad near a sprawling city the humans called Washington. As they touched down, Vela's luminescence pulsed with anticipation. "Why are we visiting this Arlington location?" she asked. Professor Zixlar's exoskeleton shifted uncomfortably. "To understand the final piece of the puzzle, why humans are banned from galactic warfare not just for our protection, but for theirs." A human diplomatic contingent awaited them. Not military personnel but civilians dressed in formal attire. Their leader, an older human with silver hair, approached as they disembarked. "Professor Zixlar, welcome back to Earth. I'm Director Harrington of the Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. Your request to visit Arlington National Cemetery with your students has been approved. A guide will accompany you." The guide was a human female in a simple dark uniform, who introduced herself as Lieutenant Commander Rivera. She led them to a ground transport vehicle that carried them through the human city. "Your civilization seems remarkably peaceful," Dronax observed, his preconceptions challenged by the absence of visible military presence. "We keep our warfare capabilities separate from civilian life," the lieutenant commander explained. "It's a principle dating back centuries, civilian control of military power." The vehicle stopped at the entrance to a vast, meticulously maintained park-like space. Simple white markers stretched in perfect rows across rolling green hills. "Arlington National Cemetery," Lieutenant Commander Rivera announced. "Final resting place for over 400,000 human warriors." As they walked among the endless rows of markers, the three cadets fell silent. Each stone represented a fallen human warrior, not simulations or historical records, but actual individuals who had ceased to exist. "I don't understand," Krell finally said. "Confederate military doctrine specifically minimizes casualties. We conduct warfare with precision to prevent such losses." "Humans fight differently," Professor Zixlar replied. "When they commit to warfare, they accept casualties at rates that would be unconscionable to Confederate species." They stopped at a massive monument, a simple wall of black stone with thousands of names engraved upon it. "The Vietnam Veterans Memorial," Lieutenant Commander Rivera explained. "One of many conflicts humans fought against themselves. Over 58,000 American warriors died in that conflict alone. And that was just one nation, in one war, on one planet." Vela's luminescence dimmed with growing comprehension. "They're willing to sacrifice at rates that would collapse Confederate societies." "Yes," the lieutenant commander confirmed. "Human history is defined by our willingness to endure losses that other species would find demographically catastrophic." They continued their solemn tour, visiting monuments to conflicts with incomprehensible casualties, millions of lives expended in disputes over territory, resources, and ideologies. "This brings us to the real reason for your education," Professor Zixlar said as they reached a quieter section of the cemetery. "The Confederacy didn't ban humans from galactic warfare because we feared what they would do to enemy forces. We feared what prolonged warfare would do to humanity itself." The professor gestured toward the graves surrounding them. "Humans possess a unique psychological characteristic. They become more effective at warfare the longer they engage in it. Their innovation accelerates. Their determination intensifies. Their willingness to employ extreme measures increases." "I still don't understand," Dronax said. "If they're so effective, why prevent them from participating?" Lieutenant Commander Rivera answered instead of the professor. "Because we don't stop. That's what your Confederacy realized after Proxima Centauri. When humans fight, we continue escalating, until either we achieve total victory or face total defeat. There is no measured, civilized middle ground in human warfare. They reached a small, unassuming monument set apart from the others. It displayed 2 dates and a simple inscription: the Proxima Incident, that others may live in peace. This monument honors the human forces who participated in our only interspecies conflict, the lieutenant commander explained. What you weren't told is that after the Confederacy quarantined Earth, our government faced enormous pressure to break that quarantine by force. Your people wanted to continue fighting? Krell asked, his tactical mind struggling to comprehend why anyone would desire unnecessary conflict. Human history is filled with examples of limited conflicts that escalated to total war, she replied. Our military leadership recognized that pattern would repeat if we engaged the Confederacy fully. The difference is that interstellar warfare would not be contained to battlefields. It would spread to civilian targets, to infrastructures, to entire worlds. Professor Zixlar's compound eyes focused on his students. This is the final truth you must understand. The Confederacy didn't quarantine Earth because humans were too dangerous to others. They did it because interspecies warfare would be too dangerous for humans themselves. The lieutenant commander nodded solemnly. Our analysts projected that all-out war with the Confederacy would result in casualties in the billions, possibly the extinction of humanity. Not because we would lose, but because neither side would stop escalating until total victory was achieved. Understanding dawned on Vela's face, her luminescence stabilizing. The band protects both sides from mutual destruction. Precisely, Professor Zixlar confirmed. And this is why I brought you here. The future leaders of Confederate military forces must understand that the human quarantine is not merely a tactical decision. It is an ethical imperative. As they prepared to leave Arlington, Lieutenant Commander Rivera handed each cadet a small data crystal. These contain selected historical records of human conflicts, specifically their aftermaths. Study them carefully. They show what happens when warfare becomes unbound from ethical constraints. Back aboard the shuttle, the 3 cadets sat in contemplative silence as Earth receded from view. Finally, Krell spoke. Professor, there's something I don't understand. You seem personally invested in this education. Why? Professor Zixlar's exoskeleton clicked softly as he turned to face his students. Because I was there. I commanded the Confederate forces at Proxima Centauri. The revelation stunned the cadets into silence. I survived because a human commander named Rivera, the lieutenant commander's ancestor, chose to accept my surrender rather than destroy my vessel. When I asked why, he said something I've never forgotten. Because if we start seeing each other as things to be destroyed rather than adversaries to be defeated, neither of our species has a future. The professor's compound eyes dimmed with memory. I've devoted my life since then to ensuring that humans and the Confederacy never again face each other in combat. The consequences would be unimaginable. As the shuttle rejoined the Galactic War Academy's navigation lanes, Dronax finally asked the question that had been brewing since their visit to Earth. Professor, given everything we've learned, are humans the greatest warriors in the galaxy, or are they simply too dangerous to be allowed to fight? Neither, Professor Zixlar replied. They are something far more complex, a species whose capacity for both destruction and compassion exceeds our comprehension. The Confederacy banned them from warfare, not as punishment, but as recognition of a fundamental truth. Some species should never be forced to demonstrate their full capacity for violence. The professor's exoskeleton straightened as they approached the academy. Remember this lesson well, cadets. The most important victory in galactic history wasn't won through superior firepower or tactics. It was achieved when both humans and the Confederacy recognized that some wars should never be fought at all. As the 3 cadets departed the shuttle, they carried with them not just knowledge of human military capabilities, but a profound understanding of why the most formidable species in known space remained isolated behind their self-imposed borders, not as prisoners, but as guardians of a terrible potential that the galaxy prayed would never be fully unleashed. The forbidden species would remain forbidden, and the galaxy would be safer for it. This completes the three-part story, Alien Students Learn: The Real Reason Humans Are Banned from Galactic War. I hope you enjoyed this unique take on the HFY humanity, genre. The story explores themes of human ingenuity, resilience, and the double-edged nature of our capacity for both creation and destruction.